Okay, so in this video we are going to see how we can determine the midpoint of a line. Okay, we can see how we can determine the midpoint of a line. So the midpoint of a line, the midpoint formula, I'm just going to abbreviate that as MP. This is just x1 plus x2 divided by 2, comma y1 plus y2 divided by 2. What does this mean? This means that what you just basically do is that you just find an average of the x coordinates of your coordinate that has been given, and you also determine the average of the y coordinates of the coordinates that you've been given. So these are just averages. Your x1 plus your x2 divided by 2, your y1 plus your y2 divided by 2. This is the formula that you can use to determine the midpoint of a line. Okay, midpoint of a line. Like a good example. Let us imagine we have been given these points again. Let us say maybe we have been given 0,1 and 2,5. These are points A and B, and then they want us to determine the midpoints. This is easy. x1, y1, x2, y2. So your midpoint is just going to be equal to your x1 is 0, your x2 is just 2 divided by 2, comma, your y values 1 plus 5 divided by 2. 0 plus 2, that's just going to be 2 over 2. 1 plus 5, that's just 6 divided by 2. 2 divided by 2, then it's just going to be 1. 6 divided by 2, then it's just going to be 3. And that's it. This is how you can determine the midpoint of a line. Okay? This is how you can determine the midpoint of a line. So let me try to expand this. Let this be the midpoint of a line and the length of a line. Let us see how we can handle this. What if you were given a task to also determine the length of this line? Now, instead of making an average, when you're determining the distance, the length of this line, you can choose to show it in this way as AB square root. This is going to be x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. Unlike the midpoint where we determine the averages, inside here we have the differences, the changes, change in x, change in y, change in x squared plus change in y squared. This is more like derived from the Pythagoras theorem, if we follow it up very closely. So AB will be equal to, the key here is only to determine your x and y values and putting them correctly in that formula of yours. So your x2 here is just going to be 2 minus your x1, your x1 is just 0, right? Squared plus your y2 is 5 minus 1 squared. So this is going to be AB so 2 minus 0, that's just going to be 2 squared 5 minus 1, then it's just going to be 4, right? Squared. 2 squared, then it's just going to be 4. 4 squared, then it's just going to be 16. 4 plus 16, then it's just going to be 20. Now, even if we try to determine the square root of 20 without using a calculator, I mean, it's going to be a little bit hard. The value is not going to be exactly a whole number. So in the case whereby maybe you're dealing with paper 1 questions or problems without that does not involve you, that doesn't require you to use a calculator, you can just write it like this: square root of 20 units, in that way, and that will be it. But if we approximate this can be maybe 4 point something. But if you're in a scenario where you're not allowed to use a calculator, this is just going to be like this: square root of 20 units. You leave it general. Don't specify to say centimeters, kilometers, meters, or whatever. We just leave it general. Hence, square root of 20 units. If you're determining the area, it's going to be square root of 20 units squared if it was the area. But having seen that this is just general length or distance, we just leave it like that: square root of 20 units. So this is basically how you can determine the midpoint of a line and also the length of a line. Do know that the midpoint formula is going to be like this. Never should it be mistaken with a gradient. Your length formula or your distance formula is going to be this one. Once you handle that, then it's okay. Thank you very much.